The great Galactic Council chamber echoed with the laughter of Councillor Xyloth as he regaled his fellow representatives with tales of the primitive Earthlings and their comically ineffective weapons. You should have seen the looks on their faces when our ion cannons vaporized their primitive tanks. Xyloth bellowed, his 4 eyes gleaming with smug satisfaction. They stood there, mouths agape, as if they had never seen true power before. The other councillors chuckled in agreement, their amusement only fueling Xyloth's condescending tirade. And their so-called firearms. He continued, making exaggerated air quotes with his tentacle-like fingers. Tiny metal projectiles that barely scratch our shields. How quaint. Councillor Mira, a stern-faced representative from the Vosgian Dominion, cleared her throat. While I agree that the humans pose little threat to our great alliance, Councillor Xyloth, we should not underestimate them entirely. They have shown remarkable resilience and adaptability in the past. Xyloth waved a dismissive tentacle. Resilience? Adaptability? Bah! What can these primitive apes possibly do against the might of the Galactic Council? Their weapons are no more threatening than a child's toy. The chamber fell silent as the other councillors exchanged uneasy glances. They had all witnessed Xyloth's arrogance before, and his tendency to make rash decisions based on his own inflated sense of superiority. Perhaps we should refrain from any rash actions against Earth, Mira suggested cautiously. The humans may surprise us yet. Xyloth scoffed, his tentacles writhing with indignation. Surprise us? Hardly. The day these humans pose a threat to the Galactic Council is the day I eat my own. He was interrupted by the abrupt appearance of a holographic display summoned by the chamber's intelligent interface. The image showed a series of classified intelligence reports, detailing the rapid advancements in Earth's weapons technology over the past decade. Councillor Xyloth's 4 eyes widened as he scanned the data, his tentacles going slack with shock. This cannot be, he stammered, all traces of his previous bravado vanishing. Mira leaned forward, her expression grim. It appears the humans have been making significant strides in their weapons development. Their firearms and explosives are becoming increasingly powerful and accurate. The other councillors murmured in concern, their confidence shaken by the unexpected revelation. Xyloth remained silent, his tentacles twitching nervously as he absorbed the implications. After a long tense moment, the councillor cleared his throat, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. I will need to review this information more closely. We cannot afford to underestimate the Earthlings any longer. Mira nodded sullenly. Indeed. We must convene a special session to discuss this matter further and determine the appropriate course of action. As the other councillors filed out of the chamber, Xyloth remained behind, his 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display. The once arrogant councillor now felt a growing sense of unease, a nagging doubt that had taken root in the back of his mind. Perhaps the humans were more than just primitive apes with bang sticks after all. Deep within the classified confines of the Horizon Research Facility, a young woman hunched over her workbench, her brow furrowed in concentration. Dr. Sarah Williamson, a brilliant and driven scientist, was at the forefront of Earth's weapons development program, tasked with pushing the boundaries of human technology. For years, Sarah had watched with growing frustration as the Galactic Council dismissed her planet's technological capabilities. She knew that humanity possessed the ingenuity and determination to match the advanced alien civilizations, if not surpass them. All it would take was the right spark of innovation. Surrounded by a team of equally dedicated engineers, Sarah pored over schematics, ran simulations, and conducted countless experiments. all with the goal of creating weapons that could rival the Galactic Council's formidable arsenal. "If they think our guns are just little bang sticks," she muttered under her breath, recalling the condescending words of Councillor Xyloth, "then we'll show them just how much punch those bang sticks can pack." Whispers of Sarah's work had already begun to filter through the higher echelons of Earth's military leadership, sparking a renewed sense of hope and determination. The young scientist's innovations were nothing short of revolutionary, promising a quantum leap in firepower and accuracy. One day, as Sarah was fine-tuning the firing mechanism of a new assault rifle prototype, the facility's alarms suddenly blared to life. Rushing to the main control room, she was met with a sight that chilled her to the core. The skies above were alive with the telltale signatures of Galactic Council warships, their deadly ion cannons already primed and ready to strike. "They're here," Sarah breathed, her fingers flying across the command console as she began issuing orders to her team. "Activate the early warning systems, scramble the air defenses, and get those new prototypes to the front lines immediately." As the facility descended into a frenzy of activity, Sarah steeled her resolve. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the chance to prove the worth of humanity's technological advancements and to defend their home from the arrogant invaders. "We're not going down without a fight," she said, her voice sharp with determination. "Time to show the Galactic Council what these primitive apes can do." Sarah's team worked tirelessly, racing against the clock to deploy the cutting-edge weaponry she had developed. Armoured personnel carriers laden with the new assault rifles, grenade launchers, and anti-materiel sniper rifles roared out of the facility, their drivers pushing the vehicles to their limits. As the first Galactic Council forces breached Earth's atmosphere, the human defenders unleashed a hail of fire that took the invaders by surprise. The thunderous roar of the advanced firearms echoed across the battlefield, each shot finding its mark with unnerving precision. Councillor Xyloth, who had been overseeing the invasion from the command ship, watched in stunned silence as his forces were pushed back, their energy shields unable to withstand the devastating barrage. His tentacles writhed with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed, his four eyes narrowing as he studied the tactical readouts. How could these primitive apes possess such firepower? Sarah, her face set in a determined expression, continued to direct the flow of the battle, her mind racing with calculations and strategies. This was her moment to prove the mettle of humanity, to show the Galactic Council that they were no longer to be underestimated. As the sun began to set over the devastated battlefield, Xyloth knew that his invasion had been a catastrophic failure. The humans' weapons had shattered his forces, and he could no longer deny the truth. The Galactic Council had severely underestimated the technological might of Earth. Councillor Xyloth's four eyes burned with seething rage as he watched the tactical displays, his tentacles coiling and uncoiling with barely restrained fury. The initial stages of the Galactic Council's invasion of Earth had been an unmitigated disaster, with the human defenders wielding their newfound weapons like seasoned veterans. "How dare they?" Xyloth snarled, his voice echoing through the command deck of the lead invasion vessel. "We are the Galactic Council, the pinnacle of technological advancement, and these primitive apes have the audacity to defy us." The other officers aboard the ship exchanged uneasy glances, their own confidence shaken by the unexpected turn of events. They had all been so certain of their superior firepower and shielding technology. How could the humans have developed weapons capable of breaching their defenses with such ease? Councillor Mira, her expression grim, approached Xyloth cautiously. "Perhaps we should reconsider our strategy, Councillor. These humans have clearly made advancements we did not anticipate. Continuing the assault in the same manner may only lead to further losses. Saloth whirled to face her, his tentacles lashing out in a display of unbridled fury. Reconsider. Losses. We are the Galactic Council. We do not retreat in the face of some primitive upstarts. He took a deep, shuddering breath, struggling to regain his composure. No, we shall redouble our efforts, he declared, his 4 eyes narrowing to slits. We will overwhelm them with sheer numbers and firepower. These humans will learn the true cost of defying the Galactic Council. Mira opened her mouth to protest, but Saloth silenced her with a raised tentacle. Prepare the fleet for a full-scale assault. I want every ion cannon, plasma torpedo, and graviton beam primed and ready to unleash hell upon those earthlings. The officers scrambled to carry out Saloth's orders, their movements tinged with a sense of unease. They had seen the devastating power of the human weapons firsthand, and the thought of facing them in a frontal assault filled them with dread. As the Galactic Council's forces gathered their strength for the renewed onslaught, Dr. Sarah Williamson and her team worked tirelessly to fortify Earth's defenses. They had managed to push back the initial invasion, but they knew that Saloth and his ilk would not give up so easily. They're going to hit us with everything they've got, Sarah said, her brow furrowed in concentration as she pored over the tactical data. We need to be ready. We need to be better. Her team of engineers and weapons specialists nodded in grim determination, their fingers flying across consoles as they fine-tuned their arsenal. They had come too far to let the Galactic Council's arrogance and stubbornness win the day. As the sun began to set, the skies above Earth erupted in a dazzling display of light and sound. Saloth's forces had unleashed their full might, bombarding the planet's surface with a relentless barrage of energy weapons. The human defenders scrambled to respond, their advanced firearms and explosives unleashing a thunderous counterattack. The clash of the two civilizations shook the very foundations of the planet, the ground trembling beneath the weight of the titanic struggle. Saloth, his tentacles gripping the command console with white-knuckled intensity, watched the unfolding battle with a mix of fury and growing unease. The humans were holding their ground, their weapons proving to be a match for the Galactic Council's vaunted technology. Saloth's brow furrowed, his 4 eyes narrowing as he realized that his confidence in the superiority of his forces had been horribly misplaced. Impossible, he whispered, the word barely audible over the deafening roar of the battle. How can these primitives stand against us? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Saloth knew that the tide of the battle was turning against him. The Galactic Council's invasion was in jeopardy, and the arrogant councillor found himself facing a stark and unpalatable truth. The humans were no longer to be underestimated. The skies above Earth were ablaze with the thunderous exchange of fire, as the Galactic Council's invasion fleet unleashed wave after wave of devastating energy weapons upon the human defenders. Bright flashes of ion cannon fire and plasma torpedoes illuminated the battlefield, their powerful beams carving through the atmosphere. Yet, to the invaders' mounting frustration, the human forces refused to be cowed. Their advanced firearms and explosives met the alien barrage with a fury that caught the Galactic Council's troops off guard. Armoured personnel carriers and battle tanks, outfitted with Sarah Williamson's groundbreaking weapon systems, unleashed a hail of armour-piercing rounds and high-explosive shells that tore through the invaders' energy shields. Councillor Saloth watched the battle unfold from the command deck of the lead invasion vessel, his 4 eyes narrowed in a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How dare they?" he hissed, his tentacles coiling and uncoiling with pent-up fury. "Our weapons should be obliterating them." Mira, standing beside him, kept her expression neutral, though her own unease was palpable. It would appear the humans have made significant advancements in their weapons technology, Counselor. Their firearms and explosives are proving to be more effective against our shielding systems than we anticipated. Moth let out a guttural growl, his tentacles lashing out to grip the tactical display. Effective. Effective. These are primitive apes with glorified metal projectiles. They should not be able to withstand the full might of the Galactic Council. The other officers on the bridge exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence visibly shaken. They had all believed that the Galactic Council's superior technology would make short work of the human defenders, but the reality unfolding before them told a very different story. Mira cleared her throat, drawing Siloth's attention. Perhaps we should consider adjusting our tactics, Counselor. If we continue to rely solely on our energy weapons, we may suffer even greater losses. Siloth's 4 eyes narrowed to slits, and for a moment, Mira feared he might lash out at her. Adjust our tactics. He spat. No, we shall crush these upstarts with the full might of the Galactic Council. Send in the ground forces, the hover tanks, the assault walkers. Let them try to stand against the might of our advanced weaponry. Reluctantly, the other officers carried out Siloth's orders, dispatching wave after wave of heavily armoured ground troops to the battlefield. But as the human defenders met the new threat, their advanced firearms and explosives proved equally devastating. Armour-piercing rounds ripped through the invaders' hulking war machines, while precision-guided missiles reduced the assault walkers to smouldering wrecks. Sarah Williamson, her eyes narrowed in concentration, directed the flow of the battle from the Horizon Research Facility's command center. She had anticipated the Galactic Council's response and had prepared her team accordingly. With each passing minute, the human forces were gaining the upper hand, their weapons inflicting devastating casualties upon the invaders. Siloth, his tentacles trembling with fury, watched helplessly as his forces were pushed back, their losses mounting by the second. Impossible, he growled, his voice barely above a whisper. This cannot be happening. Mira, her expression grave, approached the distraught Counselor. Siloth, we must withdraw our forces. Continuing this assault will only lead to further and more catastrophic losses. For a long, tense moment, Siloth seemed poised to object, his tentacles twitching with the urge to lash out. But then, slowly, the fight seemed to drain from him, and he let out a heavy sigh. Very well, he said, his voice resigned. Order the retreat. We will regroup and reconsider our strategy. As the battered Galactic Council forces began their withdrawal, Sarah Williamson allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. The humans had proven their worth, and they were far from finished. The thunderous roar of human firearms echoed across the battlefield, their devastating rounds tearing through the Galactic Council's vaunted energy shields and armour with alarming efficiency. Councillor Siloth, his tentacles gripping the command console with white-knuckled intensity, watched in stunned disbelief as his forces were pushed back, their advanced war machines reduced to smouldering wrecks. How is this possible? He hissed, his 4 eyes narrowed to slits. Our ion cannons, our plasma torpedoes, they should be annihilating these primitive weapons. Mira, standing beside him, kept her expression calm, though her own unease was palpable. It would appear the humans have made significant advancements in their weapons technology, Counselor. Their firearms and explosives are proving to be a match for our own, if not surpassing them. Siloth let out a guttural growl, his tentacles lashing out in a display of unbridled fury. Surpassing? Impossible. We are the Galactic Council, the pinnacle of technological achievement. These earthlings are nothing more than savages with glorified sticks and stones. The other officers on the bridge exchange uneasy glances, their confidence shaken by the turn of events. They had all believed that the Galactic Council's superior firepower and shielding would make short work of the human defenders, but the reality unfolding before them told a very different story. Down on the battlefield, Dr. Sarah Williamson directed the flow of the fight with a calm, focused intensity. Her team's advanced weapons were proving to be a game-changer, their accuracy and destructive power shattering the Galactic Council's vaunted technology. "Keep up the pressure," Sarah shouted into her comm, her eyes scanning the tactical displays. "Their shields are faltering. Push them back with everything we've got." The human forces responded with a renewed barrage of fire, their assault rifles, grenade launchers, and anti-material sniper rifles, unleashing a hail of devastation upon the invaders. Armoured personnel carriers and battle tanks rumbled across the landscape, their main guns thundering as they carved through the Galactic Council's armoured vehicles. Psylocke watched in horror as his forces were driven back, their once formidable war machines reduced to smouldering wrecks. No, this cannot be happening," he cried, his tentacles flailing in a desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. Mira placed a steadying hand on his arm, her expression grave. "Counselor, we must withdraw our forces immediately. Continuing this assault will only lead to further and more catastrophic losses." For a long, tense moment, Psylocke seemed poised to object, his tentacles twitching with the urge to lash out. But then, slowly, the fight seemed to drain from him, and he let out a heavy sigh. "Very well," he said, his voice resigned. "Order the retreat. We will regroup and reconsider our strategy." As the battered Galactic Council forces began their withdrawal, Sarah Williamson allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. The humans had proven their worth, and they were far from finished. "Keep up the pursuit," she barked, her tone sharp and commanding. "We can't let them regroup and come back at us with even greater force. Push them back, and don't let up until they're out of our skies." The human defenders responded with a renewed vigour, their advanced weapons unleashing a relentless barrage upon the retreating Galactic Council forces. Psylocke, his 4 eyes filled with a mixture of rage and disbelief, could only watch as his invasion force was driven back, their retreat turning into a rout. "Impossible," he whispered, the word barely audible over the deafening roar of the battle. These humans. How could they possess such power? As the Galactic Council's ships disappeared into the distance, Sarah Williamson turned to her team, a grim determination etched on her features. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice steely. "We've shown them what we're capable of. Now it's time to take the fight to them." Psylocke's tentacles writhed with barely suppressed fury as he watched the tactical displays, his 4 eyes narrowed to slits. The Galactic Council's invasion force, once a formidable and unstoppable juggernaut, was in full retreat, its once gleaming warships and heavy assault vehicles reduced to smouldering wrecks by the devastating barrage of human firepower. "This is unacceptable," the councillor hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "How could these primitive apes, these glorified savages, stand against the might of the Galactic Council?" Mira, her expression grave, approached Psylocke with caution. "Councillor, we must face the reality of the situation. The humans have developed weapons that are clearly far more advanced than we anticipated. Continuing this assault would only lead to further catastrophic losses." Psylocke whirled to face her, his tentacles lashing out in a display of unbridled rage. "Advanced? Advanced? These are nothing more than crude metal projectiles, barely worthy of our notice. How dare you suggest that we retreat from such insignificant creatures? The other officers on the bridge exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence visibly shaken. They had all believed that the Galactic Council's superior technology and firepower would make short work of the human defenders, but the reality unfolding before them painted a very different picture. Mira raised a tentative hand, her voice calm and measured. "Councillor, I understand your frustration, but we must consider the greater implications here. The humans have proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, and we cannot afford to underestimate them any longer." Siloth's 4 eyes narrowed to slits, and for a moment Mira feared he might lash out at her. "Underestimate them," he spat. "These are nothing more than primitive apes, barely a step above the beasts that roam their pathetic planet. We are the Galactic Council, the pinnacle of technological achievement. We do not retreat in the face of such insignificant threats." Sensing the growing unease among the other officers, Mira knew she had to tread carefully. "Councillor, I implore you to reconsider your stance. The data we have gathered clearly shows that the humans possess weapons and tactics that have proven to be a match for our own. Continuing this assault in the same manner will only lead to further losses that the Galactic Council cannot afford." Siloth's tentacles coiled and uncoiled, his mind racing as he struggled to come to terms with the reality of the situation. For the first time in his long career, the arrogant councillor found himself confronted with the unsettling possibility that the Galactic Council had severely underestimated their opponents. After a long tense silence, Siloth let out a heavy sigh, his tentacles going slack. "Very well," he said, his voice resigned. "Order the retreat. We will regroup and reconsider our strategy." As the battered Galactic Council forces began their withdrawal, Mira felt a flicker of relief, but it was quickly overshadowed by a growing sense of unease. She knew that Siloth's wounded pride would not allow him to accept this defeat easily, and the consequences of his actions could be dire. Back on Earth, Dr. Sarah Williamson watched the retreating Galactic Council ships with a mix of triumph and trepidation. She knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and determination. "They'll be back," she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. "And when they do, we'll be ready." Turning to her team of engineers and weapons specialists, Sarah steeled her resolve. The Galactic Council had underestimated the human race, and she was determined to ensure that they would never make that mistake again. "We've shown them what we're capable of," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Now it's time to take the fight to them. Let's get to work." The Galactic Council chamber was deathly silent as Councillor Siloth delivered his report, his 4 eyes downcast and his tentacles hanging limply at his sides. The other representatives listened with a mixture of shock and dismay, their confidence in the Council's technological superiority shaken to the core. "The humans," Siloth began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "The humans have developed weapons that are a match for our own. Their firearms and explosives proved devastatingly effective against our forces." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber, with several councillors exchanging uneasy glances. Mira, her expression grave, stepped forward to address the assembly. "What Councillor Siloth says is true," she confirmed, her tone steady. "The human defenders were able to inflict heavy casualties upon our invasion force, forcing us to retreat. Their weapons have proven to be far more advanced than we had anticipated." Siloth raised a tentacle, silencing the outraged cries that threatened to erupt. We underestimated them. Their ingenuity, their determination. They have surpassed our expectations in ways we could not have imagined." The chamber descended into an uneasy silence, the weight of Psylloth's words hanging in the air. For the Galactic Council, a collective of the most technologically advanced civilizations in the known universe, to admit such a failure was almost unthinkable. Councillor Ralkesh, a seasoned veteran known for his pragmatic approach, cleared his throat. If what you say is true, Councillor Xyloth, then we must re-evaluate our stance towards the humans. They have proven themselves to be a formidable adversary, one that we cannot afford to dismiss or underestimate any longer. Xyloth nodded, his tentacles twitching with unease. Indeed, I propose that we extend an olive branch to the humans to open diplomatic channels, and perhaps even consider them for inclusion in the Galactic Council. The other councillors erupted into a chorus of shocked exclamations, their disbelief palpable. Ralkesh raised a tentacle, silencing the assembly. Xyloth's proposal, while unorthodox, has merit. The humans have shown themselves to be a worthy adversary, and their technological prowess could be of great benefit to the Council. We would be foolish to continue to dismiss them. Mira stepped forward, her expression grim. There is also the matter of the threat they pose. If we do not seek to engage them diplomatically, they may very well become a rival power, one that could challenge the Galactic Council's dominance. The councillors fell into a pensive silence, their minds racing as they grappled with the implications of Psylloth's proposal and Mira's warning. The once arrogant Psylloth, whose dismissal of the human race had led to the disastrous invasion, now found himself at the centre of a heated debate. After a long, tense discussion, the councillors reluctantly agreed to Psylloth's proposal, recognizing the necessity of engaging with the human defenders and the potential benefits of forging an alliance. Back on Earth, Dr. Sarah Williamson watched the Galactic Council's retreat with a mix of triumph and trepidation. She knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and determination. "They'll be back," she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. "And when they do, we'll be ready." Turning to her team of engineers and weapons specialists, Sarah steeled her resolve. The Galactic Council had underestimated the human race, and she was determined to ensure that they would never make that mistake again. "We've shown them what we're capable of," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Now it's time to take the fight to them. Let's get to work." As the Galactic Council's ships disappeared into the distance, Sarah Williamson knew that the true battle was only just beginning. The human race had earned the respect of their alien adversaries, and they were poised to forge a new path in the vast expanse of the cosmos. The air in the Horizon Research Facility was thick with anticipation as Dr. Sarah Williamson and her team gathered around the central holographic display. After the stinging defeat of the Galactic Council's invasion, the human defenders had been working tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable return of their alien adversaries. "All right, everyone listen up," Sarah began, her voice cutting through the hum of activity. "We've received a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting a diplomatic meeting to discuss matters of mutual interest." She paused, her brow furrowing with a mixture of caution and curiosity. One of the engineers, a young woman named Aisha, spoke up, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Do you think they're finally ready to acknowledge our technological capabilities? After the beating we gave their invasion force, they must realize that we're no longer to be underestimated." Sarah nodded, her expression grave. "That's exactly what worries me. The Galactic Council doesn't take kindly to being shown up, especially by what they once considered primitive apes. This could be a trap, or a ploy to lull us into a false sense of security." She turned to the assembled team, her gaze sweeping over their determined faces. "That's why it's crucial that we approach this with the utmost caution. We need to be prepared for anything, and that means continuing to push the boundaries of our weapons technology. The engineers and technicians nodded in agreement, their fingers already flying across their consoles as they began to implement Sarah's directives. The young scientist turned back to the holographic display, her eyes narrowing with focus. "We'll send a delegation to meet with the Galactic Council, but we'll be ready to respond with overwhelming force if they try anything funny. This is our chance to show them that we're not to be trifled with, and that we're ready to take our place among the stars as their equals." Across the vastness of space, the Galactic Council chamber was abuzz with hushed discussions as Councillor Xyloth detailed the proposed diplomatic overtures to the human race. The once arrogant councillor now carried himself with a newfound humility, his tentacles moving with a palpable sense of unease. Mira, her expression thoughtful, addressed the assembly. "Councillor Xyloth has made a compelling case for opening diplomatic channels with Earth. Their technological prowess has proven to be a match for our own, and their potential as allies or rivals cannot be ignored." Ralkesh, his massive frame towering over the other councillors, cleared his throat. "Indeed, the humans have shown us that they are no longer to be dismissed as primitive savages. If we are to maintain our dominance in the galactic order, we must seek to bring them into the fold, or risk them becoming a formidable adversary." Murmurs of agreement and dissent filled the chamber, the councillors grappling with the implications of such a profound shift in their long-held views. Xyloth raised a tentacle, silencing the din. "We must approach this with caution," he cautioned, his four eyes narrowing. "The humans have proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, and they may not be willing to simply accept our invitation. We must be prepared to offer them something substantial, something that will convince them to align themselves with the Galactic Council." Mira nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps we could offer them a seat on the Council, as well as access to our advanced technologies and resources. If we can demonstrate the benefits of cooperation, they may be more inclined to accept our proposal." The councillors fell into a contemplative silence, weighing the risks and rewards of such a bold move. After a lengthy discussion, they reached a consensus. The human race would be extended an invitation to join the Galactic Council, and the delegation from Earth would be greeted with the respect and deference befitting their newfound status. As the transmission ended, Sarah Williamson turned to her team, a determined gleam in her eyes. "Well, it seems the Galactic Council is finally ready to acknowledge our worth. Now let's show them what the human race is truly capable of." With a nod, the engineers and technicians launched into a flurry of activity, their hands moving with a renewed sense of purpose. The stage was set for a historic meeting, one that would determine the fate of both Earth and the Galactic Council. And the human defenders were ready to seize their place among the stars.